a little background about me. I guess my main sort of experience and specialty areas are in basketball performance, obviously specifically with strength and conditioning. So um, I kind of fell into basketball because growing up, I kind of had a natural curiosity and passion for enhancing vertical jump. So of course, because of how crucial that is to the sport of basketball, that's kind of where I found myself venturing into. So yeah, I kind of stepped into various roles as I was moving through my studies and in my career early on. So I did an internship with the University of Canterbury and was essentially like an assistant strength and conditioning coach for their under 23A and their premier men's teams. And then from there moved into working with a few high school groups. So I worked with Burnside High School and their basketball program alongside St Andrews College, both their their boys and their girls teams. Um, Along the way, as I entered my master's degree in sports science, I picked up an internship with the Canterbury Rams. Um, and then, along the way, also got some part-time work with the Mainland Eagles, which was, I guess, sort of like their high school sort of development academy for all the basketball players in the region. Um, After about a year doing that, I was fortunate enough to step into the lead role for the Canterbury Rams, and then also picked up the role with the Mainland Poakai, which was the sort of newly established professional women's team in the region. Did that for about 2 years, and now I'm at Lincoln University working with men's and women's basketball, and then also working with field hockey. So it's been a really big journey, but like I said, main specialty areas are in basketball. And right now with my PhD, which I've just started this year, I'm looking at doing research on vertical top performance, profiling and training in basketball players essentially. So it sounds very broad, but sort of keeping it that way, just so that I can, kind of assess quite a few different topics as I go through the research process.
Bro, that's epic. That sounds mate. How long are you sort of into the process of the PhDs so far? Or is it sort of at the very beginning?
Yeah, still at the very beginning. I sort of initially made my inquiries about enrolling and starting it last year.
Hmm.
That was more so just to gauge, what university I wanted to do it through, and I guess more importantly, which supervisors I wanted to
Yeah.
support with their expertise. But yeah, essentially, I guess my official start was February this year. So still very early, but yeah, enjoying it so far.
Yeah, that's exciting. What drew you to Lincoln then? Just the people there?
In terms of like my work,
Yeah, doing it at through doing your PhD through Lincoln. Yeah.
so sorry, I should have cleared this up earlier. I'm working at Lincoln, but I'm doing my PhD through University of Waikato.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
so I actually did consider Lincoln only because they've got a great sort of program on offer, but also, being offered employment there, I did think that it would be a good idea. But I'm doing it through the University of Waikato,
Right.
and
Nice.
being primarily supervised by Dr. Martin Bevan and Nick Gill, obviously Nick being the All Blacks S&C. So
Wow.
I formed those relationships quite early on, and
Mm.
Lincoln only came into the mix
Yeah.
quite last minute. So I kind of just went with what I already sort of had set up in the end.
Perfect. So we'll just crack in if that's all good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Perfect. Um, so first one is just pretty simple. Is what attracted you to becoming a health professional?
Good question. I mean, I think a lot of the influence just came from being involved in sport as a child. I played a lot of sport growing up. And I mean, I just enjoyed being part of a team, and also just being in that environment where I mean, winning's great and stuff like that, but it's also just seeing that self-improvement over time. So yeah, I think early on it was definitely influenced from that. And then I guess a step from there was also getting into the mix of like training. So yeah, going from enjoying just play itself to, oh, cool, actually, like I can do something, like lifting weights, jumping, conditioning, etc. Something away from my sport where I can actually, see improvements in what I'm trying to enjoy more, I guess.
Awesome. Next one is, in your opinion, what were the key differences that gave you an advantage when you first started as a strength and conditioning coach?
Oh, good question. Um, I mean, like I sort of alluded to with my answer to that first question, like I think it was genuinely just having a passion for what I was doing, I guess. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what keeps you going.
Hmm.
You've got to be really passionate about what you do if you want to be successful. And yeah, not to say that you can't be successful if you're not super passionate about what you do necessarily, but I think that it doesn't have longevity. Yeah, if you don't have that sort of that buzz behind it. So yeah, for me it was just having a genuine interest and a genuine passion for what I did, and that drove everything. From the discipline, the work ethic side of things, and yeah, everything else.
Yeah, because I can imagine it's a bit of a grind at the start, right? And it's quite a competitive field and area that you need to be passionate about it to keep driving forward, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally agree. And I think on top of that as well, and at least in New Zealand, I think there's also limited opportunities available as well. And the ones that are available typically comes down to either being in the right time at the right place, or yeah, having sort of those connections. So
Mm.
unfortunately, yeah, knowing someone in
Mhm.
that sort of organization that you're trying to pursue does go a long way. But yeah,
Yeah, I suppose that's like everything, right? It's about who you know a lot of the time rather than what you know necessarily. And if you can use those connections to your advantage, then take it with open arms, right?
yeah, no, absolutely.
Mm. I suppose that leads quite nicely into the next one, which was, what key skills would you attribute towards nurturing or advancing your career in sport? Obviously, you mentioned that, having that passion and that drive and that discipline, but is there anything else that you could identify as being key drivers there?
Yeah, so I think it's probably different for everyone. I'll at least speak on what I think has worked for me and what continues to work for me. But um, I think yeah, just having a natural curiosity goes a long way. You're constantly I guess asking questions, reflecting, and just having that growth mindset towards just having an understanding of what you're doing in this world. Um, I think as well, what obviously complements that nicely is being, yeah, just like an analytical thinker. So, I guess being able to establish links and relationships between information, not necessarily like immediately, but like I said, having that curiosity and being able to go down multiple rabbit holes in order to, yeah, form a better understanding of your practice and what you're doing, definitely goes a long way. Um, and then I think as well, like I think soft skills are definitely an important factor. If I'm gonna yeah kind of tie that in, because at the end of the day, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you don't know how to apply it in order to get the best out of the individual that you're working with, then that knowledge doesn't matter. So I think having really good interpersonal skills in terms of yeah your communication and being able to yeah just relate and I guess connect with people is really important. I think.
Mm. How would you go about developing those soft skills? Like, for someone who's not typically comfortable with that communication. Do you have any tips out there for people to develop those skills, or is it just by doing that you become better at it?
I think it does just come down largely to doing it more.
Hmm.
Because if you're not feeling a little bit uncomfortable from time to time, then chances are you're not pushing your boundaries and developing your work-ons.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think just exposure to more opportunities to developing that is the best way to go about it. And a lot of that comes with taking on more experience. So taking on internships, being exposed to more athletes, a wide range of athletes from varying demographics. I think that's definitely helped me a lot. And when I look back, like, I think it has sort of just come down to the fact that I've had opportunities where I've worked with, like I said initially, university aged men, and then moving on to high school aged kids, both male and female, and then moving up to fully grown adults. And obviously all of them have come from varying ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and then I think more importantly as well, different levels of, I guess, not just training age, but like professionals versus amateur, right? They have very different motivations and they're at very different levels of cognition to a degree. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that's definitely, yeah, the key one is just being exposed to as many different people as possible.
So just putting your hand to everything and seeing and letting it all sort of come over you, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how would you compare, say, when you first started as an S&C to now in regard to your, say, coaching ability with small groups, then to big groups? Like for me personally, when I first started, it was like if I had to take control of a group of 30, you didn't have that like coaching voice, whereas now it just seems like second nature. Is that the same with you or
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was definitely much more comfortable with coaching athletes one on one.
yeah,
And I think that was because early on, at least, based off of the feedback that I received from mentors that I had during these internship experiences, it was that um, they didn't have, you know, problems with, I guess, my knowledge in sort of the field of performance and strength and conditioning. It was more around, like I was talking about before, the soft skills. So being able to actually coach athletes, especially, yeah, in large group settings. So yeah, definitely from the beginning, I felt like I was more of I guess a book or a knowledge based coach, and I could get away with, I guess, hiding that by being good at coaching athletes one on one. But yeah, now I feel like I've sort of found a way where I can apply my knowledge in a much more practical way where it actually gets results long term, and also being able to do that with larger groups, no matter sort of what I guess the group dynamics are. Um, yeah.
Looking back, what would you do differently or change in your career to this point? Or would you sort of say that everything you've done has sort of sequentially got you to the point you are now? Or have you made some big mistakes that you would sort of go back and say, hey, look, I shouldn't have done that? Just for people who are looking at, beginning a career similar to what you have done, is there anything you would do differently to start it off?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the only thing that I would change is I think I would try to, I guess, open myself a little bit more specifically to the mentors that I had, and be a bit more vulnerable in the sense of, I guess, not trying to maintain pride around having to know everything right there and then. I felt like there was this pressure of, even though I'm in here, trying to gain experience and to gain knowledge, I felt like I had to stand out by showing that, yeah, I'm already at this high level, which, at the time, reflecting back, I definitely wasn't. So yeah, I think I would just open myself up a little bit more in that sense, and just, yeah, ask more questions. Because I think the best way to speed up the learning process in this field is to take on to be taken on by mentors. Um, because at the end of the day, they've gone through, well, different experiences, but more exposure and time to experiences that you haven't necessarily had. Um, and then, yeah, on top of that, they have a wealth of knowledge from those experiences, and of course, from whatever formal education they've received as well. So yeah, that kind of like that center point of all that information that we're trying to grab from research articles, systematic reviews, books, etc. But yeah, it's all there, and it can all be communicated, I feel, in a more succinct and relevant manner, from being person to person, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. How does one go about finding quality mentors then? I mean, how have you found your mentors along the way?
Yeah, great question. I think it's hard to know, who the good mentors are versus
Mhm.
who the not so good mentors are, and I think at the end of the day, it partially does come down to your own interpretation based off of your past experiences. So yeah, I think, like I said at the start, just take on experiences. I think any experience, for the most part, is good experience. And I think you'll be exposed to more and more mentors, and you for yourself can figure out who the good ones were and who the bad ones were. Because at the end of the day, you're trying to form your own version.
Mhm.
Well, you're trying to, I guess, develop yourself into your own person. But a lot of that is influenced by, the people you've been exposed to. So I guess you're just trying to, yeah, go across a wide range of mentors, and kind of grab what you liked, and that's how you, yeah, figure out who the good ones and the bad ones are.
Mm.
So I guess to summarize that, I think bad ones can be good ones. It just comes down to finding a mentor, really, and just,
Yeah.
yeah, jumping on board.
Yeah. So you're essentially saying that at some point along the track, you got to learn to think for yourself and determine whether or not this is a good or bad mentor based on your own actions and your own knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think in our field, and I mean, to be fair, probably in a lot of other fields as well, but I think we become replicas of, I guess, we become replicas of the people that work in our field to an extent, and often we don't actually find ways of thinking critically on our own and going,
Mhm.
actually, is this what I believe? So I think, yeah, a lot of the time we can be quite strongly influenced by those mentors that we've had, in positive ways, but then also in ways where we go, well, actually, where do I sit on this? Am I my own sort of unique version of what a coach can be, or am I just kind of a copy paste of everyone else that's come before me?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point that you just brung up because I think I also don't think that that is just strictly in your guys in that industry itself. I mean, critical thinking across the board and people just reciting and rote learning and replicating what others have done before, right, is pretty rife across the board. So it's just about learning to think critically and think outside the box and actually think for yourself rather than based upon what someone else has said and then just reciting that back. Key skills to learn. Dan, did you have any other questions you wanted to follow up with?
Yeah, I just wanted you to touch on the your role as an S&C, and then what you did kind of on the side, and how you can do S&C as well as kind of one-on-one coaching on the side, how that works all together.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, currently I'm working at Lincoln. That's my sort of main part-time role at the moment. So um, like essentially on the side of that as well, I've kind of I operate this sort of business where I deliver online programming to clients that inquire with me. So um, it's quite a mixed bag, but most of the time it's basketball players just because that is my specialty area. So it's definitely a little bit of a juggling act from time to time, and certainly with the PhD workload that I've taken on board this year, it's um, been a good challenge to try to see how I balance all of it. But like essentially it works really well. I think when I have time spare, I'll come home from a day of coaching at Lincoln, and oftentimes, people will inquire with me on Instagram, which is primarily where I sort of operate my business and sort of publicize everything. And essentially, I'll just get as much information from them as possible and just clarify what their goals are, and then string together a program that's specific to their needs and sort of their training age and injury profile and all that other important information, and send it out and essentially just keep communication with them. So it's interesting because very, very different, I guess, outlets of coaching. Like I feel like one is I'm very much on my phone or on my computer a lot in terms of, catering to my online clients, but then it's nice to, go out to Lincoln and then actually deliver in person. So I find it's a nice contrast and it's a nice balance.
And how do you find as an S&C kind of selling an online service to someone? How do you, from your point of view, go and justify the service that you're giving when for most of us it's like we do S&C in person and you give so much value that way. How can you continue to give that value online?
So I'm assuming you mean value in terms of, I guess, the quality of the product, and then also
Yeah.
just justifying, well, I guess justifying the quality of the product. Is that sort of what you're referring to?
Yeah, because essentially how I look at it is like you're a practitioner, so people go onto your Instagram and they see you doing all this awesome vertical jump stuff, all this dunking, like you're fully doing everything that you're teaching. So then they would see that and go, okay, I want this. I probably already know how to work out. I just need the program off you and maybe some expert guidance. So how do you kind of portray that in your, I guess, service?
So like I guess one thing that I'm really big on is obviously not just, I guess, gaining knowledge, but sharing knowledge, and
Mm,
that's, to be honest, how my business, or in the earlier stages my Instagram platform, started out. Like I was just so passionate about, I guess, all of the literature around training, and obviously specifically around vertical jump enhancement. So I was constantly, well, I still am constantly putting out posts that I try to be super informative around, in terms of the content itself. And I try to do that in a way where I'm not throwing jargon at people. I definitely was quite guilty of that in the past. I think it's a common compensation that coaches use early on in their career to try to show that they're smarter than than they actually are. So I try to really like filter it down to being simple and understandable. And I basically send that out, and obviously I'm fortunate enough to have or have had a lot of clients that can sort of pose as being the participants in the video itself. So essentially, I use that, and that's basically what I use to draw the interest. And then oftentimes, what happens if there are still people that are on the fence about it, and I guess my content or my experience hasn't convinced them enough. Often they'll come to me with their specific questions, and then I'm more than happy to answer it. I mean, I think a lot of other coaches quite often hesitate around sharing information. And yeah, some have even said that I probably should put a price on it. But like I said, like I'm super passionate just about sharing knowledge and helping others understand the information in our field. So I mean, at the end of the day, that they're not going to be able to figure out how I build programs just from, me sharing a few answers to questions that they have. So yeah, that's basically how I try to get the ball rolling. And then yeah, often if they take that leap of faith and they, inquire with me for a program, they'll see it. They'll see it straight away. And if they don't, then they'll see it after the first couple of weeks of training for sure.
And then just with that whole online thing, do you see yourself in the future going fully into that? Is that something that would be a goal of yours?
Yeah, I've changed my opinion on this quite a lot. I do enjoy working with other organizations for sure. I think there is benefit to it, especially regarding like networking and making connections and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I could definitely see myself doing that. I think it definitely is a leap of faith to do that. And I guess with the expectation that that's going to be your full-time job and therefore your full-time income. But yeah, I think that would definitely be an aspiration that I'd have later down the track once I've put in another good few years of hard work.
Yeah, cheers for that.
No worries.
Fantastic.
I think that's all the questions.
Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much, Moses. That's been epic, mate. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule, and best of luck with your PhD coming forward.
Thanks, really appreciate it. And yeah, it was good to jump on and chat. So
Yeah,
all the
cheers.
best with the rest of the videos that you guys do.